The summons came without ceremony. No escort. No explanation. Just a runner at Lyria's door before first bell, eyes carefully neutral. The Alpha Prince requires your presence in the lower council chamber. Lower. Not the throne hall. Not the public court. The place where decisions were made without witnesses. Nyx stirred beneath Lyria's skin as she followed the stone corridors down, claws brushing her ribs in warning. They are not deciding who you are. Her Lycan murmured. They are deciding how easily you can be erased. The chamber doors opened at her approach. Inside, the air was colder. Moonstone walls curved inward, etched with Lycan law and precedent, names of those who had failed carved smaller than the victors. A deliberate design. Subtle intimidation. Jamin stood at the center of the room. Not beside his father. Not elevated. Waiting. His posture was rigid, hands clasped behind his back, expression locked into that same disciplined mask he wore on the training grounds. No warmth. No irritation. Nothing that could be mistaken for familiarity. Alpha Daesung observed from the raised platform, silent and immovable. Elder Maeve stood off to one side, staff grounded, eyes sharp and knowing. Mina leaned gracefully against a column, perfectly at ease, as if the outcome had already been discussed and agreed upon elsewhere. Lyria stopped where protocol dictated. She did not bow. No one asked her to. Jamin spoke first. Lyria Monroe. He said, voice even, impersonal. Your status in Moonspire has been under review since your arrival. Not welcome. Not adjustment. Review. This evaluation will determine whether you are fit to remain within Moonspire's borders. Daesung's gaze never left her. Jamin continued, tone precise, almost clinical. Effective immediately, you are assigned to the provisional auxiliary track. Mina's lips curved faintly. Lyria said nothing. The auxiliary track places you below sworn warriors and above palace service, Jamin went on. You will be subject to rotational assignments, physical assessment, and behavioral observation. Behavioral. As if she were a risk. You will not be granted advocacy, rank privileges, or private placement during this period. There it was. The quiet stripping. Jamin finally looked directly at her. If you fail to meet expectations, he said. You will be removed from Moonspire. Not exiled. Not sent away. Removed. Clean. Administrative. Final. A murmur rippled faintly along the edges of the chamber. Mina stepped forward, hands folded, voice smooth as silk. This is generous, she said pleasantly. Many would have expelled her outright. The auxiliary track allows her to prove herself, if she can. If. Always if. Lyria felt the weight of every gaze in the room pressing inward, measuring her reaction. Waiting for defiance. Anger. Fear. She gave them none. What are the expectations? She asked calmly. Jamin's eyes flickered, just once. Discipline, he replied. Efficiency. Compliance. And dignity? She asked. Mina smiled wider. That, Mina said lightly, is earned. Jamin did not correct her. He reached into the inner pocket of his coat and withdrew a thin tablet official, sealed with the Alpha crest. This document outlines your assignments and restrictions, he said, extending it toward Lyria. You will report to Rowan for logistical placement within the hour. Rowan inclined his head slightly from the perimeter. Not encouragement. Not pity. Recognition. Lyria took the tablet. Their fingers did not touch. Do you accept these terms? Jamin asked. The question was not a courtesy, it was a test. Nyx pressed closer beneath Lyria's skin, steady and unafraid. Accept. Her Lycan murmured. Not because you submit, because you endure. Lyria lifted her chin. Yes, she said. I accept. Mina's smile faltered for half a second before she recovered. Daesung's gaze sharpened, not pleased, not disappointed. Calculating. Elder Maeve watched Lyria with something like quiet approval. Jamin gave a single nod. Then phase 1 begins now, he said. No pause. No reassurance. Just procedure. As Lyria turned to leave, Jaemin's voice stopped her. One more thing. She looked back. You are not to enter the High Residence Wing during this evaluation, he said. Not without direct authorization. Distance. Drawn in stone. Lyria met his gaze steadily. Understood. She exited without another word. The doors closed behind her. Mina exhaled softly, satisfied. That was efficient, she said. Jaemin did not respond. Daesung finally spoke. See that you remain impartial, the Alpha said. This evaluation must be beyond reproach. Jaemin inclined his head. Of course. But when the chamber emptied and silence reclaimed the space, Jaemin remained still, eyes fixed on the door Lyria had passed through. Rakan paced beneath his skin, restless. She did not resist. The Lycan rumbled. She did not bend. Jaemin clenched his jaw. That wasn't strength. That was something more dangerous. And Phase 1 had only just begun. Moonspire did not bleed its people in public. It wore them down quietly. Lyria learned that before the sun had fully cleared the spires. Her tablet chimed just after first bell, not with instruction, but with assignments. Stacked. Rotating. Relentless. Weapons transport. Armor sorting. Supply runs between the lower barracks and the eastern watchposts. No rest window. No priority clearance. No explanation. Nyx stirred beneath her skin, displeased. They want you tired before you're tested, her Lycan murmured. Sloppy. Slow. Easier to justify removal. Lyria rolled her shoulders once and got to work. The armory was already alive with sound, metal on stone, low voices, irritation hanging thick in the air. A senior quartermaster barely glanced at her tablet before snorting. Auxiliary, he muttered. Figures. He shoved a crate toward her. Heavy. Unbalanced. East Barracks. Now. No escort. No cart. Lyria bent, lifted, and adjusted the weight against her hip without complaint. Her muscles protested, but her footing stayed solid. Eyes followed her as she moved. Some curious. Some amused. Some waiting for her to stumble. She didn't. By midday. The assignments shifted. Not randomly. Deliberately. An extra run added where rest should have been. A shortened deadline that made no logistical sense. A reassignment mid-task that forced her to start over. Every change bore Mina's signature, not in writing, but in permission. She's still standing? Mina asked lightly from the upper walkway, observing as Lyria passed below with another load balanced across her shoulders. Amazingly, an attendant replied. Mina smiled. Add one more. Jaemin watches. Jaemin observed from a distance. Not openly. Never closely enough to be accused of interest. He tracked timestamps. Efficiency. Completion rates. And something else he didn't write down. Lyria didn't rush. She paced herself. Adjusted routes. Redistributed weight. Anticipated bottlenecks before they slowed her. She worked like someone who had learned long ago that endurance was not about force. It was about precision. Rakan stirred beneath Jaemin's skin, unsettled. She conserves energy like a warrior, the Lycan rumbled. Not like prey. Jaemin ignored him. He focused on the tablet. On the data. On anything except the tightening in his chest when he noticed she hadn't been offered water. By late afternoon, the courtyard heat pressed down hard. Sweat traced Lyria's spine beneath her borrowed tunic. Her arms trembled. Not visibly, but enough that Nyx shifted closer, lending strength without flaring. A young warrior scoffed as she passed. She'll fold before dusk. Lyria didn't look at him. Didn't slow. Didn't rise to the bait. Rowan noticed that. So did Rianne. She hasn't asked for relief. Rianne murmured quietly. Rowan's jaw tightened. No. She hasn't. Across the yard, Jaemin finally lifted his gaze fully. Lyria set down her final crate with controlled care, not letting it slam. Not letting frustration show. She straightened slowly, breath steady despite the ache burning through her muscles. She looked Composed. Not broken. Not resentful. Present. Jaemin's fingers tightened around his slate. This phase was supposed to wear her down. Instead, it was revealing something the court hadn't accounted for. She didn't need recognition to function. She didn't need reassurance. She didn't even need fairness. She only needed the chance to endure. Rakan growled low, approval threaded with warning. Careful, Alpha. This one survives pressure. Jaemin swallowed the thought before it could take root. Phase 2 was not over yet. And Phase 3 would be worse. Much worse. Mina's POV. Mina's chambers were immaculate. They always were. Every surface polished. Every fabric aligned. Every object placed with intention. Order was not preference. It was proof. Proof that she belonged here. Proof that Moonspire bent correctly when she moved through it. She stood at the tall window overlooking the lower courtyards, hands clasped loosely behind her back. Posture perfect. And still. Her jaw ached. She should be exhausted by now. Mina said quietly. Her attendant hesitated behind her. The auxiliary reports say she completed all assignments within acceptable margins. Acceptable. Mina's fingers tightened. That track is designed to erode, she said coolly. Not to accommodate. Yes, my lady. Mina dismissed her with a flick of her hand and waited until the door sealed shut before allowing the irritation to surface. Below, in the courtyard, Lyria crossed the stone with steady steps, sweat-darkened tunic, muscles tight with fatigue, head lifted like she had every right to be there. No stumble. No collapse. No plea. Mina's Lycan hissed beneath her skin, sharp and venomous. She endures because she thinks endurance earns her place. No. Mina whispered. Endurance earns nothing. She turned from the window and paced the room, the soft fabric of her gown whispering against stone. Every measured step bled control back into her spine. This was not how it was supposed to go. The exile was meant to fray at the edges. To grow reckless. To reveal weakness that could be used. Instead, she was becoming inconvenient. Mina stopped at her vanity, meeting her own reflection. Perfect hair. Perfect composure. Perfect restraint. And yet, Jaemin had watched the courtyard longer than protocol required. Not openly. Never openly. But Mina noticed everything. He's supposed to be distancing himself, she murmured. Not observing. Her Lycan curled tighter, claws scraping against Mina's thoughts. He feels her. He just won't admit it. No. Mina snapped softly. He feels disruption. Nothing more. She reached into the hidden drawer beneath her vanity and rested her fingers on the edge of a small, sealed box. Not yet. Escalation had to be earned. Justified. Clean. Public failure was preferable to private removal. The court needed to agree with what happened next. Mina straightened, smoothing the front of her gown. If she won't break under labor, she said calmly, then she'll break under attention. Her gaze hardened. Icy blue sharpening with intent. Phase 3 would not be quiet. It would be visible. Warriors. Observers. Hierarchy reasserted in front of witnesses. And Jaemin? Mina smiled thinly. He would be forced to choose where he stood. Because the exile had survived being ignored. Now she would see what happened when Moonspire looked directly at her. Her Lycan purred, cruel and eager. Yes. Make her perform. Mina turned back toward the window just in time to see Lyria pause below, lifting her face briefly toward the sun, eyes closed for half a heartbeat. Unbowed. Unbroken. Mina's smile vanished. Yes. She whispered. Fury threading her calm. I will enjoy this. Marisol's room was barely larger than a storage cell. One narrow bed pressed against the stone wall. A small wash basin near the door. Shelves lined with folded linens and carefully stacked bundles of herbs drying in the corner, their scent soft and comforting, lavender, sage, something faintly sweet. It was warm. That alone felt like a luxury. Lyria stood just inside the threshold, hands loosely clasped at her sides, suddenly aware of how much space she took up in the small room. Her muscles still hummed with residual strain from the evaluation, a low throb that reminded her she had pushed hard and been watched while doing it. Marisol shut the door quickly, then pressed her back against it as if she expected someone to burst through. "You can stay here," she blurted. "I mean, just for a bit. During evaluation hours, I mean. They can't say anything. This is my assigned space." Lyria glanced at her. "You're sure?" Marisol nodded fast. "Yes. I checked. Twice. And I asked the quarter runner without saying why I was asking." That earned a small smile from Lyria. "Thank you." Marisol's shoulders relaxed like she'd just been holding her breath since the training yard emptied. She gestured awkwardly at the bed. "You can sit. Or, well, there's not much else to sit on." Lyria lowered herself carefully, exhaling as the stone weight finally lifted from her legs. The moment she sat, Nyx eased closer beneath her skin, warmth blooming subtly through tired muscle. "Safe." Her Lycan murmured. "For now." Marisol hovered, wringing her hands. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said suddenly. "I mean, I don't know all the forms, but even I could see that. You weren't showing off." Lyria looked up at her. "No," she agreed. "I wasn't. You just," Marisol searched for the word. "You fixed it." That surprised Lyria more than anything else that day. Marisol flushed. "I mean, people don't usually like that. When you fix things they didn't ask you to." Lyria leaned back against the wall, gaze unfocused. "I know." Silence settled, not awkward, but thoughtful. After a moment, Marisol sat beside her on the edge of the bed, close but not crowding. "They were waiting for you to snap," she admitted quietly. "Everyone was." "I know. And when you didn't." Marisol swallowed. "It scared them." Lyria turned her head slightly. "Did it scare you?" Marisol shook her head. "No. It made sense." She hesitated, then added, softer, "You make things feel steadier. Like they won't fall apart just because someone important says they should." Something loosened in Lyria's chest at that. "They won't," she said. "Not if people stop pretending order is the same as control." Marisol smiled, small and bright. "I'm glad you're here." Nyx stirred, approving. Lyria reached out and squeezed Marisol's hand once, gentle, grounding. "So am I," she said. "Even if they aren't." Jamin's chambers. Jamin closed the door behind him and locked it. Not for privacy. For containment. The room was sparse by design, dark stone, minimal furnishings, nothing unnecessary. Maps lay spread across the central table, weighted at the corners. A weapons rack lined the far wall, blades polished, untouched. Control lived here. He removed his gauntlets with precise movements and set them down side by side. Every action followed order. Habit. Training. It didn't help. Jamin stood at the table and stared at the maps without seeing them. The drill replayed, not visually, but structurally. The angle she changed. The efficiency gained. The way three bodies could move through that space without exposing the flank. It was correct. That irritated him. Jamin did not like variables that justified themselves. He reached for his evaluation tablet and began documenting. Auxiliary evaluation, Phase 3. Subject demonstrated. Controlled execution under observation. Adaptability within physical constraint. Situational awareness exceeding baseline expectations. His stylus paused. He disliked that phrase. He struck through exceeding and replaced it with meeting adjusted parameters. Better. He continued. Modifications introduced without authorization. Impact, non-disruptive. Outcome, requires further review. Clinical. Safe. Rakan paced beneath his skin, restless. "You're rewriting the problem," the Lycan rumbled. "I'm documenting it," Jamin replied quietly. "You're containing it." Jamin's jaw tightened. He set the stylus down. "She is not my concern," he said. "She is under evaluation." And yet, he had paused. Not out of mercy, not out of indecision. Because the system had not accounted for someone who improved it without seeking credit. That was dangerous. Jamin turned away from the table and crossed to the window, looking out over Moonspire's spires and courtyards. Now quiet under the approaching dusk. Problems that survived pressure tended to grow. And this one was not going away. Lower council chambers. The chamber felt older at night. Torchlight flickered low against carved stone walls etched with ancient decrees. Laws that had outlived kings, pacts, and wars. The air carried the weight of history and consequence. Alpha Daesung stood near the council table, hands braced against its surface. Maeve did not sit. She never did when truth mattered. You allowed it, Daesung said flatly. Maeve tilted her head. I did not stop it. A distinction without difference. Maeve stepped closer, staff striking the stone once, sharp, final. No, she said calmly. A distinction you rely on when it suits you. Daesung's eyes darkened. She altered a sanctioned drill. She corrected a flawed one. She defied protocol. She prevented unnecessary exposure. Silence pressed in. Daesung straightened slowly. You are dangerously close to advocating for her. Maeve's expression did not change. I am advocating for truth, she replied. And truth does not bend to your comfort. She destabilizes this court. Maeve laughed softly, without humor. No. She destabilizes assumptions. She moved to the carved wall and traced a finger along an ancient ruin. You built Moonspire on strength and obedience, Maeve said. But you forgot the third pillar. Daesung did not respond. Adaptation, Maeve continued. The thing that keeps packs alive when tradition fails. Daesung turned toward her fully now. You're suggesting I indulge in subordination. I'm suggesting you recognize competence before it embarrasses you further. A sharp silence followed. You felt it, Daesung said quietly. Didn't you? Maeve's gaze lifted to his. Yes. And? She is not what you fear, Maeve said. She is what you've avoided preparing for. Daesung exhaled through his nose. You always speak in riddles. Maeve smiled faintly. Only when the truth would scare you. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You can remove her, Maeve said. You can crush her quietly and preserve the illusion of control. And Moonspire will bleed for it later. Daesung looked away. She is not here by accident, Maeve finished. And neither is the timing. Silence held. Finally, Daesung spoke. The evaluation continues. Maeve inclined her head. Of course it does. But as she turned to leave, she added one last thing, soft, unyielding. Just remember, my king. History does not remember who enforced order. She paused at the door. It remembers who recognized what was coming. The doors closed. Daesung remained alone in the chamber, staring at the carved laws that had once felt permanent. For the first time in a long while. They felt insufficient.